Okay, it looks like we are live, and we are going to be doing this mock draft on Saturday instead of Sunday because tomorrow we actually have a real Dynasty startup getting kicked off over there on our Dynasty channel for some people supporting the show on Patreon. Like I said, guys, I mean, we run so many Dynasty leagues throughout the course of the entire offseason and obviously through the season, but we're talking about those startup drafts. But that's not what this is going to be. This is not going to be a Dynasty startup draft. This is going to be a 2021 fantasy football mock draft. And I know a lot of people are playing best ball right now. I know a lot of people are playing Dynasty. Well, I think that this tool right here to use these mock drafts to have a great understanding of what you should be expecting for 2021 production, it's going to be extremely useful. Even if you yourself are not drafting in an actual redraft league right at this moment. I mean, if you're playing Dynasty, if you're playing best ball, this should be really useful for you. But anyway, let me pull up the chat here. Let's not try to waste too much time. Let's get this thing full. And I already see that we have 20 people in the chat, over 10 likes on the live stream. Guys, y'all drop likes on these videos or these streams more than really anybody else on YouTube. So thank you so much, of course, for all the support. And yeah, let me send out a notification on Discord to let people know that we are live. And I think we should be good after that. I know this is going to be a very early live stream. I know most people probably aren't used to having the live stream at this time, but regardless, let's get this going. I want to upload a Dynasty video over there on the Dynasty channel later today. And we have our official flock meetup happening today. I'm sure if you're watching this as a video later on, this is meaningless for you. I hope you were able to make it out. Obviously, that flock meetup is a massive deal for anybody in Texas that wants to come meet everyone. Okay, so we got Kevin, Joe, Braden, James. Guys, please, if y'all want in this mock draft, I know the majority of y'all are already supporting the show on Patreon. I know the majority of y'all are out in every single live stream and also out there with all the premieres as well. So let me get y'all that Patreon link. So please shoot me a DM over there if you are wanting in this mock draft. Like I said, guys, what we do for these mock drafts is I go through and give everybody supporting the show over there on Patreon a priority to get in the mock draft first. And then once they take the spots that they want, then we send that link out for the mock draft in the live chat for everybody subscribed to the channel, for everyone with their notifications on. That way you can come in and you can take the rest of the spots. But here, let's grab the 106. That way we aren't picking on the end. We can be thinking about what we are going to be doing with our picks every single time. Okay, Richard says, I'm a Patreon supporter. Do you have a draft cheat sheet yet? So no, over there on Patreon, we do have our official 2021 rookie draft guide for those dynasty leagues. And our 2021 fantasy football redraft guide is going to be available by let's not call it early. Let's do mid-July just so I can make sure all the editing is done. But I'm very excited for y'all to check that out. I mean, we got so much positive feedback on our rookie draft guide. A lot of people said it was something that they have never seen before with how we presented statistics to use our analysis. So yeah, I'm very excited to get y'all that fantasy football draft guide this upcoming season. And that is, of course, all going to be over there on Patreon. I don't think we are going to be doing anything when it comes to sending that out on Amazon, sending that out on a website. I want to just continue to grow that Patreon community. Okay, so it looks like we have a decent amount of DMs over there on Patreon already. Let's grab a link to this draft. Let's go start sending it out. Okay. So Dirtbag, I got you. My man Zach sending this over right now. Let's go. Kevin Wesley DMing us on Patreon says, hey man, can't wait for the meetup today, man. Super excited you were coming out. Yes, sir. Sending that out to you right now. Let's send this to Joe. Okay, James sending you the link. Derek got you the link. Okay, it looks like this mock draft may be filled with just everybody from over there on Patreon. Looks like we may not be able to get anybody in the general chat in here, but please, of course, let me just double check everything in that regard. Okay, so Ryan's sending that out. I know this is a little bit earlier than we usually do, guys. I am apologizing for that, but it looks like Jake subscribing to the channel. Jake, thank you so much for subscribing, my man. Okay, so now let's go through John out here. We got Carson out here. Jacob. Okay, Jacob says, I've never been in one of these. I'm trying to get in this one. Man, please just give me like 30, 40 more seconds to make sure everybody supporting the show over there on Patreon has that priority to get in. Then we can send it out in the general chat. But it looks like we have 2 more spots left in this mock draft. So just let me wait 30 more seconds to see if they can get in. And of course, guys, if y'all have any questions regarding fantasy football, we can be answering those as we wait to send these out. Okay, Mike said I'll be back to the live chat soon. Okay, man, come back. This is going to be a fun mock draft. It's going to be a fun live stream. Okay, so now let's see if we have anything else in the general chat. Okay, we got Villy in here already joining the mock draft through Patreon. Man, what is your team name over there? Actually, I'm assuming it's maybe Dreamville, but please clarify me with that one. Okay, so now, yeah, I think that should be it. Let me send out this link for anybody else to join this mock draft through the general chat. We have 2 more spots, so I just sent that link out to the mock draft in the general chat. So please go through and take those. Let me switch us over with our screens real quick. Okay, so it looks like we are all set up here. We got 1 more spot. Longman Pete joining Longman Pete, another Patreon supporter. And The Rock in here. The Rock, someone that joins a lot of these mock drafts. But I think that we should be good to get this mock draft going. Let me see how many rounds we have set up. Okay, 14 rounds. That is completely fine here. Okay, so let's begin this draft. We are going to have Rog on the clock with the 101. And see, this is going to be a 1 quarterback redraft mock draft that is a PPR format. So you're not going to see Mahomes going at the 101. You're not going to see Mahomes or Kyler going at the 102, simply because this isn't that Dynasty Superflex league that we love so much. This is going to be going back to the roots, getting back to the basics, and looking at these 1 quarterback redraft mock drafts. Okay, so you have CMC, Dalvin. It looks like that's going to be the consensus 101 and 102 from everything I've seen with the high-stakes redraft community and how those drafts are going this offseason. So, yeah, I mean, if you have the 101, you're locking in you're locking in Christian McCaffrey, 102, Dalvin Cook, really without even thinking about it. But here at the 106, we are going to have an interesting decision. Barkley goes, so I think we honestly just lock in Derrick Henry. Now, I am a little bit worried about the age getting to Derrick Henry, 27 years old. This is when you saw the Le'Veon Bell fall off. This is when you saw the Todd Gurley fall off. I mean, Todd Gurley fell off years before that, but that was because of his knees. This is also when you see the David Johnson fall off. But regardless, let's take Derrick Henry, hoping that Julio Jones maximizes what he can do on a per-touch basis, given the fact that Julio's most likely going to make it where opposing defenses can't stack the box, but also it can be seen as a negative, given that they may skew a little bit more pass-happy and not wanting to force-feed Derrick Henry 25 touches over and over and over again. Okay, Bog Oats has finally got in a draft. I'm excited, man. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And yeah, I'm going to be trying to get as many of these mock drafts going through all of this season. Hopefully we can get some real drafts going. And I will make this announcement. I completely forgot to say this. But what we are doing that's actually very exciting over there on Patreon is once we hit 400 Patreon supporters, which should be this week. I mean, if you're watching this live stream weeks out in advance, I am sure that we are far past that goal with how fast that community is growing. But we are going to be creating a $500 fantasy league, a $500 buy-in fantasy league, and I'm going to be giving away one of the spots to those Patreon supporters. So we're going to be a 12-man league. I'm taking one of the spots. I am paying an additional spot to give away over there on Patreon, and then the 10 other spots are going to be all through Patreon supporters. So yeah, that's going to be very exciting. Once we get closer to filling, which should be this week, I'll send more information on how you can enter. What I'm most likely going to do is put a post up over there on Patreon and going, hey, here is where I'm going to be collecting names to do the giveaway. Please drop your name as a comment if you want to be entered for the free $500 spot, and also drop your name if you want to be entered to play in the league at all, because I'm sure we're going to be having to do giveaways on each end, and we're probably going to be doing a ton of those redraft real leagues this offseason, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, I don't know how many $500 leagues we can do, just because I don't want to be spending thousands and thousands and thousands just off of these Flock listener leagues, when I definitely want to be putting more money down on best ball. I want to be putting way more money down on Dynasty. But yeah, it'll be very fun. Okay, so Bogoat says, are we close to the $500 league? Yes, I can pull up Patreon right now. I mean, I'm sure that, actually, no, Patreon, I saw this morning. Patreon, we have 381 supporters, so we need 19 more, and we get about 5 Patreon supporters a day. So it's going to happen this week, my man. At least the announcement will be made. Okay, so let's go back to this mock draft. And clearly, you see the running back thirst is real. I mean, you have 11 of the first 12 picks being running backs. The only wide receivers off the board so far are Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. So this is interesting when we get to our second round pick, because usually I would like to be going with the running back in that range, but simply I don't know who we are going to have the option of looking at. I mean, there are two or three names. Actually, now there are only one or two names that I could be interested in. Well, let's see what falls to us at the 207. Okay, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, both guys I was looking at. Come on. There's one guy that I really want here at the 207. Do not snipe us with this. Okay, come on, Uncle Piff. Come on, Uncle Piff. Okay, so if we go across positions, you have Mahomes available at quarterback. At running back, you have Dobbins, Swift, Sanders, Jacobs, CEH. At wide receiver, you have Metcalf, Hopkins, Diggs, A.J. Brown, Michael Thomas. At tight end, you have Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Darren Waller. So let's see what Uncle Piff leaves us. But also, I just saw that we passed 25 likes on this live stream already, even though it's only 8:50 a.m. with where I'm at. So thank you so much for all the support, guys. And I am extremely excited to get started off this way. Now, y'all know we did that in-depth historical research trying to find where tight end value comes from. And the research based on the past 10 years in fantasy drafts has shown that if you're drafting tight ends in that middle tight end 1 range, I mean, if you're drafting the tight end 5, tight end 6, tight end 7, tight end 8, the majority of the time, that is going to be a busted pick. I mean, based on historical research, those have been very bad investments. But what has not been a bad investment is investing into a tight end at the very top of the draft, and you get to avoid those landmine tight ends later on. So Travis Kelce here at the 207, I'm going to be very excited about taking him. I mean, in high-stakes redraft leagues, you actually see Travis Kelce going in the first round a lot. So I think at the 207, that's going to be a no-brainer. And I really like our start here with Derrick Henry and Travis Kelce. Okay, so now let's go through. And Jacob says, damn, how do I not get in? I swear I pressed the link right away. Jacob, man, please let me know if you press the link on Patreon. Let me know if you press the link in the general chat. Because if you wait until it's in the general chat, I mean, I am sure that there are a million other people pressing that link at the exact same time. Okay, but it looks like Teresa subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much, Teresa Moore, for subscribing. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, so now Swift off the board. Swift is someone that's been falling into the mid to late third in high stakes redraft leagues. I think that if you can get him in the early third, that would be a value that I'm excited about every single time. Also, it's notable that Patrick Mahomes goes off the board here at the 209. I really don't like the idea of taking Patrick Mahomes in the second, even though he is the best quarterback on the board. But if you're taking Mahomes, I really want to make sure you're doing so on a roster that decided to go with either Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce in the first or second round. That way you can go through and you can get that built-in correlation, because you go, hey, if I draft Patrick Mahomes in the second round, he literally has to be the best quarterback in fantasy for this pick to make sense. With the opportunity cost that I'm giving up at running back and wide receiver, if Patrick Mahomes does not lead the NFL in passing yards, I most likely whiffed on this pick. But if you take a Travis Kelce, if you take a Tyreek Hill, and Mahomes does indeed lead the NFL in passing yards, which he should be the favorite for, all of a sudden, if that happens, you can bet your mama that Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are both going to smash as well. Okay, so now let's go through and look at the board with what we are going to be facing at the 306. So you do have some of those wide receivers going off. You have Diggs, Hopkins, Jefferson, Metcalf, and Brown. Now, if we pull up the wide receiver draft board, there are still so many guys that you could be interested in. I mean, some players that I've been hyping up a lot lately: Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, and I promise you, we have a very intriguing video coming out on Allen Robinson sometime soon. But now you have Michael Thomas going off the board, but CEH would have been the perfect guy for us to get at the 302. Sadly, it does not happen. But regardless, we can pull up the running back tab and see if there are any interesting options that we could find there. Okay, so you do have that run on tight ends. Because this is not a tight end premium league, we wouldn't have been considering either Kittle or Waller at the 306 regardless. Okay, so here at running back, really, it looks like this is a dead zone. I know a lot of people are going to be screaming at me to take J.K. Dobbins, and if it was a dynasty league, I definitely would be at this moment. But the fact that it's a redraft league, they bring back Gus Edwards on that large extension, and you go through and you look at how this team's going to operate near the red zone. Lamar Jackson taking those carries. You're also going to have very few checkdowns from Lamar Jackson. And I understand J.K. Dobbins, you can make the argument that he is by far and away the best running back available on the board in terms of his pure talent. And a lot of people want to look at the fact that the Baltimore Ravens are the most run-heavy offense in the NFL. They don't look beyond that to understand that Lamar accounts for so much of that rushing. But here it's going to be very simple for me. taking Keenan Allen at the 306. I mean, Keenan Allen, someone we've been pumping up over and over and over again. Literally, the guy finishes as a top 10 wide receiver every single season. You look at last year and you take out the game where he was injured and left early. You take out the game that Tyrod Taylor started, and Keenan Allen was actually the wide receiver 3 in points per game with Justin Herbert under center. I mean, I think Keenan Allen being drafted right next to Terry McLaurin is one of the best values in fantasy right now. And I stand by the fact that if you are drafting Terry McLaurin over Keenan Allen in fantasy, that is a bad pick. Keenan Allen is going to be seeing more targets. Keenan Allen has shown us that he has the production. Keenan Allen has a better quarterback. I mean, Keenan Allen, the easy answer there at the 306. I mean, if I was going to be considering anybody else, it most likely would have been Dobbins, just as the best running back available. But you really don't have to pressure yourself to take that running back 2 when you have Derrick Henry as your running back 1. Okay, so now let's go through, and Mr. Padilla says, ready for tonight? Yes, sir. Coming out to the Flock meetup. Man, I am excited to meet you. Guys, if you are watching this right now and you are in Texas, we have that Fantasy Flock meetup happening at Zilker Park at 6 p.m. Austin, Texas today. Please come out if you can. Okay, now Allen Robinson going off the board there at the 309. Allen Robinson, another player that I am very, very excited about, someone that I will be making a video about soon. Now, Travis Etienne at the 310. Like I said, guys, I mean, in a dynasty format, I am all in on Travis Etienne. I am taking him in the late 3rd, and I am ecstatic about that in a dynasty startup. But here in a redraft league, I think I would be a little bit hesitant to go through and draft him over some of these wide receivers or even over some of these running backs. I think I would wait a little bit longer on a Travis Etienne, letting him fall to the mid-4th. Now, I will say if he fell to the 407, I most likely would have been drafting Etienne myself. So maybe I'm just a little bit biased here, and maybe I'm just a little bit jealous that I did not get Travis Etienne. But regardless, I mean, I think that's a little too early in a redraft league, but please let me know what y'all think about that in the general chat. Okay, so now Super Teams Only did decide to go running back with his 1st and 2nd round picks. Now he goes with a Chris Godwin at the end of the 3rd. The thing about wide receiver here is it's all one flat tier. I mean, you can't really nitpick Chris Godwin versus Amari Cooper versus Mike Evans versus DJ Moore versus Robert Woods. I mean, they're pretty much all the same in this range. So maybe for that reason, I would prefer to go with a Miles Sanders, knowing that that running back teardrop is coming very soon, even though Miles Sanders playing in an offense that I really don't want the running back for, because very similar to J.K. Dobbins, I mean, with Jalen Hurts, you're going to be expecting him to take the rushing touchdowns. You're going to be expecting Jalen Hurts to not check down to the running back, given what he can do himself on the ground. So although I really liked Miles Sanders in fantasy last year, and I want to be completely transparent, I was horribly wrong on Miles Sanders last year. I think that this year, I don't necessarily like drafting him, but at the 312, that is going to be considered value. Now, Amari Cooper off the board at the 401. Like I said, that long tier of wide receivers. Okay, Jacob says he believes it's too early for Travis Etienne at the 310 as well. Okay, man, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going crazy. I think I would prefer to go with a Carson, a Montgomery, a Miles Sanders over Travis Etienne just in redraft leagues this year. Like I said, I would easily rather have Travis Etienne over those players in Dynasty, and we've been pumping him up in Dynasty nonstop now. Okay, so coming up in the 4th round, I will say if we had decided to go with a J.K. Dobbins, if we had decided to go with really any Baltimore player, maybe we went with the Mark Andrews in the 3rd round, we could consider Lamar Jackson in the 4th. That would be really the only quarterback I'd want. Maybe you could make the argument Josh Allen if we decided to take Stephon Diggs, or make the argument Kyler Murray if we decided to take DeAndre Hopkins. But based on the fact that we don't have any clear stacks here, I think that we honestly don't even consider the quarterback position. I think really there's only one answer, and that is going to be wide receiver. And you do have Robert Woods going off the board at the 404. I would have loved to get Robert Woods on this team. But since Robert Woods goes, I think what we actually do is we scroll down a little bit. So I know this is a little bit down ADP, but it's a very simple answer here. I mean, when in doubt, go with CeeDee Lamb. Go with the player that's going to be playing on a highly prolific offense, someone that's taking that year 2 jump. We know he has the talent profile coming in. Going to be very excited about CeeDee Lamb there at the 407. Okay, it looks like we just passed 41 likes on the live stream. Thank you so much, guys, for everybody who's decided to go down there. Drop a like. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to this live stream, given the fact that it's not even 9 a.m. yet. So I'm sure that everybody on the West Coast is definitely still asleep right now. But I was hoping that we could get this going since we do have that flock meetup later today, get some streams underway, get a little bit of practice in for our real flock Patreon Dynasty draft that we are going to be having tomorrow, because that's a real league. I mean, that has a buy-in. I have my money up there for grabs. So I want to make sure that we can continue to practice not only mock drafting, because sitting down and doing a mock draft is very easy, but I think a lot of people underestimate how difficult it is to manage both the live chat, the draft board, and streaming all at the same time. So yeah, let's continue to do that. Let's continue to get our reps in, because I promise you, when we get to the season, I'm going to be kicking off so many flock Patreon leagues, and I really need the practice of continuing to live stream through them and not having our draft board suffer. Okay. So let's go. Keller says CD and Allen have the same bye week. Man, I do not care at this point about bye weeks in the slightest. I mean, I know a lot of people want to stagger their bye weeks, but you have to view it like this. So when you're drafting a player, you are most likely expecting that you're going to get 16 games out of them regardless. Now, I understand that you're looking and you're wanting to have just a full starting lineup each and every week. But if you go and you draft a player on a different bye week every single week, essentially what you're saying is you're saying, hey, I'm never going to be at a major deficit in any given week, but I'm never going to be at full strength. I am always going to be playing 90% of my starting lineup potential, hoping that gets me there. Where if you stack players on buys, then all of a sudden what you have is you go, okay, maybe this one week I'm at a major deficit, but every other week I'm going to be crushing my opponents. When they stagger their buys, they're at 90%. I'm at 100% myself. Now, I'm not saying that there is one correct way to go about this. I'm not saying that staggering is definitely optimal, or I'm not saying that stacking all your bye weeks on the same week is optimal. But what I'm saying is I really don't want people to be drastically changing their draft strategy unless you get to the point where you go, hey, I've already drafted my top 3 wide receivers and they're on a week 7 bye. Beyond that, maybe we need to be going through, maybe we need to be looking for some diversity. But no, please don't be making all your decisions early in the draft about bye weeks at all. I mean, knowing that CeeDee Lamb and Keenan Allen are on the same bye has no impact on that draft pick for me. Okay, so beyond that, you have Jacobs. Jacobs at the 408. I'm honestly not even going to say I hate it. I mean, at that point, I think he is falling enough where you can start to consider him. You have Julio, DJ Moore, Jamar Chase, and Brandon Ayuk all going off the board. I think I would definitely prefer Brandon Ayuk over Jamar Chase in a redraft league. Now, I understand if you look at high-stakes redraft leagues, on the other hand, that they are actually taking Jamar Chase over Brandon Ayuk. And the majority of the time, those people that are putting up thousands of dollars per fantasy league, they most likely know more than I do. I'm not going to hide around that fact. I mean, if I had thousands of dollars to put up on fantasy leagues, maybe I would do it, but I can't say so for sure. So I'm not going to be acting like I am significantly better than them at all. I don't want that to come out of my mouth at all. Okay. But anyway, we are going to be back up on the clock in the 5th round. And here it's a little bit of a dead zone. You look at running back, and I mean, there's one guy that stands out to me, but I really don't even want to go there. I think what we may end up doing is I think we may end up going QB, because what we have is we have the potential to go through and get an elite quarterback with a stack built in. And I think what you're going to find when you're drafting at this 5-6 turn, we are going to be taking a quarterback here, and I would be willing to bet that multiple quarterbacks go within these 2 picks. And since we do have CeeDee Lamb that we took at the 407, I think getting a quarterback that has that access to an elite rushing and an elite passing volume ceiling does make a little bit of sense. So I would say in a vacuum, I would prefer Lamar Jackson as the top quarterback off the board here. But given the fact that we do not have any Baltimore Ravens pass catchers and we already have CeeDee Lamb, it does make me want to consider Lamar Jackson. It does make me want to consider Dak Prescott. But if we sit here, we really think about it, I think what we should do is we should just continue to go best value available. And the thing with drafting Lamar here is, yes, we don't already have that stack on our roster, but there are a lot of stacking potential later in the draft. I mean, we can still come away with a Rashad Bateman. We can still come away with a Hollywood Brown. So while in theory, at this point, it most likely makes more sense to take Dak Prescott, I think if we can get a Rashad Bateman in round 11, it's really going to make that Lamar Jackson pick that much better when we're already viewing Lamar as a quarterback that does have that elite rushing upside. And we've already discussed, I mean, this is a player that was literally a fantasy league winner in 2019. I mean, he was the Christian McCaffrey of the quarterback position, where he was averaging close to 30 points a game. The second best quarterback was down there at 25. I mean, he was averaging 20% more production than the second best quarterback in fantasy. I mean, that is something that is so hard to get away from. Now, here you do have the team after us in Uncle Piff stacking Stephon Diggs with Josh Allen. Obviously, that is ideal, man. Nice start to this draft. I will say Nick Chubb at the 107. I wouldn't go there. I would prefer another running back beyond him. But I think the idea of going with that bell cow running back in the first, getting those wide receivers in rounds 2 through 4, then getting your elite quarterback stack in round 5 is definitely ideal, even if I don't necessarily agree with the exact players behind it. Okay, so now let's go through and fill in the blank. Says, are you concerned about the lack of running back talent in your running back 2 spot? Okay, so I will address this real quick. And I know this is what a lot of people get wrong, especially in these mock drafts when you don't necessarily have the fantasy experience in playing with a lot of leagues, because I can tell you with confidence right now, just by seeing some other people do these on YouTube, I mean, it is very easy to see who has actually played in fantasy leagues and who just talks about it. Because we put up pretty much every single penny that I have of disposable income since I was literally 15 years old. I've been playing in high volume fantasy leagues, trying to do everything I can to maximize our ROI. And we've actually been a very profitable player every single season since 2014. And how we've done that is not worry about your roster construction automatically at that running back 2 spot in these mock drafts. Because when you understand, when you go through the course of the season, you can find a running back 2 off waivers. You can find a James Robinson. You can find a Myles Gaskin. And when you are dominating your league mates in every other starting lineup spot, when you have an advantage at running back 1, at tight end 1, at quarterback 1, at wide receiver 1, at wide receiver 2, at wide receiver 3, at the flex spots. Hell, if I'm at a slight disadvantage at running back 2, well, I know some people on YouTube in the comment section aren't necessarily going to like my team. They don't necessarily understand how you operate through the season and how it's very, very easy to find that running back 2 production through the course of 16 weeks by playing the waiver wire, by loading up on a ton of running backs at the end of drafts, just having a shotgun approach. I mean, throwing a million dartboards, hoping one sticks, and that's all you need here. So I really know that a lot of people are not going to like our start, given the fact that we don't have a running back 2. But I promise you, there have been countless studies. There has been so much math showing the fact that going through and drafting running backs in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in that round range, it's a losing proposition 9 times out of 10. Because what you find with those running backs is they are running backs that are projected to see starting jobs, but they obviously have major red flags. They don't have that job security. All that happens is they are slightly better than the waiver wire options and what you can project for their touches. And a lot of people think that those are safe options. A lot of people think a James Robinson, a Mike Davis, a Myles Gaskin, they're locked and loaded for 16 weeks through the NFL season. And that's not the case at all. I mean, what happens when Javion Hawkins starts playing better than Mike Davis? You think Mike Davis is going to be in there for longer than a week? No, please understand that fantasy leagues function differently through the season than they look just on a mock draft. Okay, but Javonte Williams, we would have gone with him as a running back 2 after saying all of that if he fell to us. And now here, this is the classic running back dead zone. I don't think we would be taking anybody in that range. I think we continue to hammer home wide receiver. Now it's going to be between Tyler Lockett, Juju, and Courtland Sutton here for me. But I think, honestly, given the fact that this is a redraft league, we have a very easy answer of going with Tyler Lockett. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be saying, but Mason, you don't have a running back 2. Well, guys, we didn't have a wide receiver 3. I mean, you look at this roster and you have to start 3 wide receivers. You have to start a tight end, a quarterback, and 2 flex spots. So we can start 5 wide receivers on a weekly basis. So if those 5 wide receivers are in there and they're giving us an edge over our league mates, I don't care if our league mates have an edge at running back 2 with their Mike Davis versus my waiver wire guy, versus my guy that I'm getting in one of the last few rounds. Okay, so now let's go through and Jacob says you should have took Mike Davis in the 5th and waited to take Dak in the 6th. If Dak was available in the 6th round, and I knew that for sure, I definitely would have not taken Lamar in the 5th. But simply, we knew that there was going to be a quarterback run right here, and I was betting that Dak Prescott would have been one of those quarterbacks going off the board. Now, I will say I don't think Mike Davis would have been our draft pick if we decided to pass on a Lamar Jackson. I think we would have actually gone with one of those wide receivers. But yes, I agree with you. if we knew that Dak Prescott was going to be available to us in the 6th round, we would have passed on Lamar in the 5th. We would have decided to go with the best player available at another position, getting Dak Prescott in the 6th round. But honestly, I mean, with Lamar, with that ceiling that he has, I'm completely fine with that investment. Jacob says, can I replace the auto pick? Hopefully roster baiter is back sometime soon. And sadly, no, we cannot replace an auto pick coming in just because it is a pain in the ass. I mean, literally, it's nearly impossible to do that through sleeper. So what we usually do is if someone bails on the draft a little bit early, I'll go through, and if there are any draft picks that are way off the board, I mean, if you see like a Melvin Gordon going here at the 7-12 when this guy already has 3 running backs, then we will go through and we'll manually change that ourselves. That way the draft remains its integrity. But yeah, no, I'm sorry, not going to be replacing any auto drafters right at this moment. But we do have some more wide receivers going off the board here with Juju, Devonta Smith, and Cortland Sutton. It's very interesting to see Devonta Smith going off the board before Jerry Jeudy in redraft leagues, because what is so funny is over there in the Dynasty community, people actually value Jerry Jeudy higher than Devonta Smith, even though Devonta Smith, the rookie coming in, is actually valued higher in a high-stakes redraft league, which obviously makes no sense in the slightest. Devonta Smith, one of the best values in Dynasty right here, if he actually does return value on this 6-10 pick in a redraft league. Okay. So now Odell Beckham Jr. going off the board at the 6-12. Odell, someone that's nearly impossible for myself to evaluate. I mean, I have such a hard time with trying to find what we are going to expect from Odell Beckham Jr. in a median outcome projection. Okay, so now in the 7th round, let's see where Dreamville does decide to go. Now, obviously, what kind of sucks about taking those onesie positions so highly, when you take a Travis Kelce, when you take a Lamar Jackson, you are essentially having to act as if you smash those picks right away. So if you are acting like Travis Kelce is going to be the tight end 1 in fantasy, if you're acting like Lamar Jackson is going to be a top 3 quarterback in a non-tight end premium, a non-superflex league, we simply don't have the luxury of taking any quarterback or tight end value if it quote unquote falls to us. We are locked and loaded to only be drafting running backs and wide receivers through the rest of the draft, which obviously is not ideal, but it is something that we put ourselves into. Now, Chase Claypool going off the board there at the 704, Jerry Jeudy at the 705, which leaves us with a very easy pick here at the 706, getting Laviska Shenault as our wide receiver 4, a guy to throw in that flex spot. I mean, has that elite ceiling based on that prospect profile coming out of Colorado in last year's NFL draft. I mean, he was highly impressive in what he did with a horrible situation last year. Now he gets the biggest quarterback upgrade in the entire league from Gardner Minshew over to Trevor Lawrence. I really, really like that pick. Okay. So let's go through. Karin says, that's your 7th mock draft, my man. What's the point of doing that many? Just asking. Thanks in regards. Because this is OTA season. I mean, we have news changing over and over and over again. I mean, the best thing to look at in that case is what about all these positive reports coming out about Laviska Shenault during camp? I mean, you have so many pieces of news that are slightly adjusting player value, and also getting as many reps as we can in here makes a lot of sense, because I'm going to be putting up a significant amount of my own money this redraft season once we get to the high volume part of the season. So I want to have as much practice as I can with going through and doing these mock drafts. I want to be as finely tuned as I can, especially having to live stream, check the general chat, do this mock draft all at the same time. I mean, I want to be accustomed to that. I want to be having a spot where we are very comfortable. Okay, Rock Lee says, what are your thoughts on Gallup's dynasty value if he is traded to a team that can support 2 high-end wide receivers? Okay, man, here, thank you so much for asking this. And I'll say over there on that dynasty channel, we actually have a video coming out about Michael Gallup very, very, very soon. Now, I'm not saying that he is going to get traded. That's not going to happen at all, but he could easily be on a new team next year. Now, I'm excited to let you see that video because we have some very exciting things to say about Michael Gallup. Okay, Mike saying he's finally back in the live chat. Okay, happy to see that, my man. Okay, Cash is saying, can Dak support 3 1,000-yard seasons from Cooper, Lamb, and Gallup? Yes, that is completely possible, because what you find with the Dallas Cowboys is that's not a team that's letting wide receiver 4s and wide receiver 5s even run routes. I mean, they have such a condensed target share where literally you only have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup seeing the field. Beyond that, you don't have anybody else. So you really actually like to target those offenses, even if they have multiple high-end options, because you're expecting that you're going to find a ton of passing volume there, and that passing volume is going to be condensed among those top 3 options. Okay, so now Fuller, Logan Thomas, Robbie Anderson, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Cooks, all off the board. Okay, so it looks like, I mean, this is the round of the wide receiver. You can say that for pretty much the past 5 rounds where the majority of the players are going to be those wide receivers going off the boards, especially when you can start 5 wide receivers in this format. Now, if we are going through, and what I hate to point out, and we tell ourselves every single mock draft this, is Mason, leave Lamar Jackson, leave Josh Allen, leave Dak Prescott alone in the 5th round. Decide to pass on them, and you can get Jalen Hurts at the very end. Yet we never learn our lesson. We never take that advice, and instead we continue to draft Lamar Jackson here, even though Jalen Hurts is still available, and you're not expecting him to go anytime soon, given the fact that the majority of these teams already have their quarterback one. Okay. Okay, so let's go through and see. Okay, Melvin Gordon at the 801. Jarvis Landry at the 712. It's going to be putting us in a difficult spot if wide receivers continue to go off the board here. Because like I said, I mean, we do need a running back. And I don't necessarily love taking one in this range, but I think we may have to if more wide receivers go off the board. But of course, if wide receiver value falls to us, we will be happy to take it to make our last flex spot of the day. Okay, so C-Can says, this guy mentions Mason doing 7 mock drafts. I literally probably do 100 or so mocks the 2 months before my drafts. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to get those reps in. I mean, you have to. It's so important. And another reason I like doing these mock drafts is because whenever I do a mock draft, we present the opportunity for 11 other people over there on Patreon to hop in a mock draft as well. And I really want to be making sure that they also get their reps in and they're comfortable for the redraft season. Okay, Al Frazier coming out, man, super happy to see you out here. I mean, man, thank you so much for coming out to a live stream. Okay, so Trey Sermon going off at the 804. I do like that Trey Sermon pick, honestly. Ronald Jones at the 805. The difference here between Trey Sermon and Ronald Jones is Ronald Jones outscores Trey Sermon, just say 6 times out of 10 in fantasy this upcoming year. But the ceiling on Ronald Jones is so limited given the fact that we have already seen that that is a team that is not going to be willing to give Ronald Jones any usage at all in the receiving game. So given the fact that he's not going to have any usage in the receiving game at all, I think we would actually prefer taking the unknown and the upside with the Trey Sermon, someone that you could reasonably see end up being a top running back in fantasy. So here, I think we have an easy answer. Honestly, I think we are going to be going with Chase Edmonds at the 807. Now, usually we wait a little bit longer to get our running back too, but usually you have Chase Edmonds going off the board in the middle of the 6th. Sometimes he falls to the 7th. You never see Chase Edmonds fall to the 8th. I mean, I am very, very excited about that pick. I mean, to be completely honest, this may be one of my favorite mock drafts that I've done so far if we were talking the redraft channel. So yeah, I mean, I could not be more excited about this start that we do have. Okay, so Deebo Samuel goes directly after us. Okay, Lewis is saying, just join the stream. What is the format for today's draft? Okay, this is a redraft league. This is a 1 quarterback PPR format where you start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and 2 flex spots. So if you look at our team right here, we have pretty much our entire starting lineup already filled. I'm not necessarily drafting to do just that, but we naturally found that balance in taking best player available, where our running back room is Derrick Henry and Chase Edmonds. We have Lamar Jackson as our top quarterback, Travis Kelce at tight end, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Lockett, and Laviska Shenault at wide receiver. Very, very, very excited about that start. Honestly, I don't think I could have drawn it up any better than that. Okay, so now Jalen Hurts off the board. So David Johnson also at the 809. I mean, it's laughable that David Johnson is going this close to Chase Edmonds. I could never consider taking David Johnson here. Okay, so quarterbacks, like I said, I'm bringing this up just to tell myself, Mason, next mock draft, do not be taking Lamar in the 5th. Just wait it out. Get Ryan Tannehill. Get Trevor Lawrence. Get Joe Burrow at the very end. I mean, that's such an easy thing to do, yet I see Lamar in the 5th, and I can't help myself. I have to draft him there after going in the late 2nd, early 3rd in almost every single league last year. Okay, so now you have Marquise Brown at the 8-11. Hollywood Brown would have been someone that we would be considering given the fact that we do have Lamar Jackson and we would like to fill that stack if we can. But I've said this before, with a lot of people new to stacking and how it actually optimizes your roster to increase your ceiling in fantasy, when you have those rushing quarterbacks like a Jalen Hurts, a Lamar Jackson, a Kyler Murray, stacking is actually a lot less important there because when you draft them, you're kind of making a bet that you're actually going to have a lot of rushing production in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns that may not necessarily even correlate to you going through and having the potential to find a wide receiver returning value on that investment. So while we would like to stack Lamar Jackson here with a guy like Rashad Bateman, I mean, it's not a case where we need to be reaching for a player. I mean, the last thing I'm going to do is reach to complete a stack when Lamar Jackson is that quarterback. Okay, so Gallup at the 901, Rob Gronkowski at the 902. So let's point this out, why I decided to go Travis Kelce here at the 207. Okay, so essentially, if you look at the tight ends that are going in this range, right? So we go, okay, we took Travis Kelce at the 207. That way, when we were in the 7th round, we didn't have to be considering a Dallas Goedert. Instead of taking, just say, DeAndre Hopkins here and then having Dallas Goedert in the 7th, actually, we would have been having to take Logan Thomas in the 7th. We got Travis Kelce in the 2nd and Laviska Shenault in the 7th. And let me know what y'all think in the general chat. Would you prefer the combination of Travis Kelce and Laviska Shenault, or would you prefer the combination of DeAndre Hopkins and Logan Thomas? My answer, honestly, is quite easy. I would definitely prefer Travis Kelce based on historical hit rates with what you found at that tight end position. But yeah, I think that's an easy answer, to be honest. Okay, so now out wide receiver, pulling this up. Leonard Fournette goes off the board right before us. And it looks like we are in one large flat tier. I would say that Elijah Moore would be popping off the page for me before they restructured Jamison Crowder's contract, because I was operating under the assumption that Jamison Crowder was actually going to get cut from that team. But Jamison Crowder comes back. So I know we just talked about not wanting to reach to complete our stack, but because nobody is really popping off the board here and we can't go quarterback, we can't go tight end, I think we do decide to take Rashad Bateman as our wide receiver 5, and we complete that stack with Lamar Jackson, kind of hoping that Lamar bumps up the passing volume with what we have seen over the past 2 seasons. But yeah, here let's take Lamar as our wide receiver 5. So we do have a complete starting lineup at this point. Like I said, that's not incredibly important, but still, I mean, having that balance when it falls to you is nice if it's there. Okay, so Rock Lee says Mark Andrews at the 602 is my favorite tight end pick of the draft. Yeah, no, Mark Andrews at the 602 was fantastic value. I mean, going behind James Robinson, Deontay Johnson, DJ Chark, I mean, I really do like that Mark Andrews value at the 602. I will agree with you there. Now, A.J. Dillon, Damian Harris going off the board directly after us. Now, honestly, it would have been intriguing to go with one of those running backs given this roster construction. Like I said, at wide receiver, you were facing that one large tier. So I think we can't kick ourselves too much for deciding to pass on a few of those options and just get that stack with the Rashad Bateman. But A.J. Dillon and Damian Harris were definitely both in consideration there at the 906. Okay, so Antonio Brown going off the 909. I believe that is the highest we've seen Antonio Brown go in any of these mock drafts. Now, Elijah Moore at the 910. Please let me know what y'all think of Elijah Moore, because trust me, I was on the Elijah Moore train before anybody. I loved Elijah Moore way back there in March. But you're looking at this as a case where, hell, Jamison Crowder coming back is going to be getting snaps, especially when they restructured that contract for this upcoming season. They bring back Corey Davis. They sign Corey Davis to a massive deal. So all of a sudden, it's looking like targets are going to be a lot harder to come by for Elijah Moore than we initially thought. Okay, so now let's go through, and Kevin's saying he would definitely prefer Kelce and Shenault. Yeah, that's why we want to go through, and we want to make sure we are getting that elite tight end where the value falls to us. Okay, so now best available quarterback, Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow. Like I said, guys, this is why I need to write myself a note. I need to tell myself something, not to be drafting Lamar Jackson in the 5th round anymore, and instead let us wait and get Joe Burrow very, very late. Now, at running back, you have Drake, Carter, really nobody outside of that. I mean, Tony Pollard, I'd be interested in. Now, wide receiver, you have Parker, Hilton, Hardman, Amar-Ra St. Brown, Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, Henry Ruggs. So one large tier, but there are a few players I am interested in. Tight end we can't even really bring up, given the fact that we don't have the option to go that way. So here, Tom Brady going off the board here at the 10:02. This team does have Chris Godwin for that stack. I will say I don't mind the draft pick in that case, but still, I think you could have decided to wait on a Tom Brady, got him a lot later, given the fact that there still is Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, and Matthew Stafford, and Ryan Tannehill still all available. So yeah, I don't mind you getting Tom Brady as your quarterback one on that team, but I think you could have waited until one of the very last rounds. Okay, so now we are going to be up on the clock here at the 10:07. I see we just passed 75 likes on the live streams. We literally almost have more likes on the live stream than we have live viewers. So thank you so much, everybody, for that kind of support. Now, I'll say Michael Carter Jr., someone that I actually maybe would have considered with this upcoming pick, but he does go. So now we are going to be taking Tony Pollard in the 10th. I mean, that is a pick I'm taking every single time. On a team that we don't have a locked in running back to, and we're just kind of hunting for upside, I think Tony Pollard in the 10th is an easy selection that we can go with 9 times out of 10. I mean, most of the time he's not going to be there, to be completely honest, but I'm saying if he does fall there, that's a draft pick I'm taking every single time. Okay, so Zach Moss, Kenyon Drake go both directly after us. I really like that Kenyon Drake pick. I mean, it's surprising to see the contract that they decided to give Kenyon Drake to go to Las Vegas. So that kind of says that, hey, Kenyon Drake's going to have a role on this offense, even in games where Josh Jacobs is active. Now, we don't necessarily know if those are going to be valuable enough touches where you can start Kenyon Drake in fantasy, but at the very least, he's going to have a role where if you're in the bye weeks, if you have an injury, I mean, you could throw Kenyon Drake in there, kind of hope for a touchdown, hope that he comes away with 3 to 4 receptions. And obviously, we have seen him have a small stretch in his NFL career where he can operate as a bell cow running back. And if that happens with the Josh Jacobs injury, I mean, all of a sudden, Kenyon Drake does indeed become a league-winning player. Okay, Rock Lee says, yeah, he probably could have waited on Tom Brady. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking a little bit here. I think that, I mean, it would be very unlikely to see someone go with Tom Brady over Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill. At least I definitely wouldn't consider that. And when all of these teams after you already have QBs, I think waiting on Tom Brady in the 11th or the 12th would have made a little bit more sense if you liked a running back or a wide receiver in this range. Okay, Kevin says, my running back queue was just machine gun to death. Yeah, we do see that running back run here in the middle of this round. But I think that these were all great values for these handcuffed running backs. I mean, there are still some guys that I would be interested in if they make it back to us. There are about 3 or 4 names, actually, that pop out to me. 5 if you want to include Rashad Penny, but with Rashad Penny not practicing right now, that is going to make me a little bit hesitant given his history. Okay, so let's go through. And Mike says Oregon with Tannehill over Brady. I mean, yeah, I definitely would have drafted Ryan Tannehill over Tom Brady, but like we said, Super Teams Only did have that stack in with a Chris Godwin. So like I said, I'm not going to sit here and argue that you need to be drafting Ryan Tannehill over Tom Brady in a league where you already have Chris Godwin. I think that's more of a neutral point. Instead, I would rather just wait on Tom Brady, knowing that most other people were going to have Ryan Tannehill over him. Okay, but now Latavius Murray going off the board at the 10-12. That definitely would have been a pick that I would be going with. Now, Kevin obviously said he was looking at running back here. So let's pull up his team. That was his running back 4. So, man, I don't even think you really need to put a lot of pressure on it when you have Christian McCaffrey here. And let's see if Kevin decides to go QB with this 11th round pick. I don't think he has to, given the fact that there is only one other team without a quarterback yet, and there is still 3 to 4 solid quarterback options. I mean, maybe people decide to start doubling up here. I think I would prefer to go with a running back and just try to get another dart throw instead of taking a quarterback regardless of what the value is. But he decides to go Darnell Mooney, so he passes on QB. I think that's a mistake, man. I think you made the correct decision on waiting on quarterback until this point and letting Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers all fall. But I think I would have locked in whatever guy I wanted there with the 1101. But I could be wrong. Maybe those players still make it back to you, but I think I would have gone QB. Okay, Eric says, why do you prefer Dynasty over Redraft? Okay, a couple reasons why I prefer Dynasty over Redraft. A, with Dynasty, you play year-round. I mean, obviously, that is a massive advantage. B, with Dynasty, there is so much more potential to make trades that actually help both partners. Where in Redraft, if you're going to make a trade that actually helps 2 teams, what you have to be doing is you really have to be looking at needs, and that's about it. I mean, you pretty much have to be looking for a team that desperately needs a running back. You have a ton of running backs, you need a wide receiver, and that's literally the only way you can really make a trade in a redraft league that helps both people. But in Dynasty, since everybody has different motivations, and some people are trying to win next year or the year after that, and some people are trying to win this upcoming season, I mean, that creates so much potential for people to actually go through and be able to get deals done. Okay, so we are up on the clock here, and there are 2 running backs that stand out to me. So I think we go ahead and we draft one at this point. I think we draft Chuba Hubbard. I know a lot of people aren't going to understand this pick, but I am just simply saying, hey, this is a league where these players at the very back end are most likely going to eventually end up on the waiver wire regardless. So what I would prefer to do is I only care about upside. I only care about ceiling, because if I'm going to cut this player almost anyway, there's no reason for me to go through and take a wide receiver, just say like a Christian Kirk, because there are going to be a million Christian Kirks on the waiver wire. So essentially when you take Chuba Hubbard, you go, hey, what happens if Christian McCaffrey tears his ACL in training camp? What happens if Christian McCaffrey gets another high ankle sprain? Well, all of a sudden, Chuba Hubbard has the potential to be Mike Davis from last year, be a running back one based on what we saw with him in 2019 at Oklahoma State. So yeah, I'm going to take Chuba Hubbard there, even though it may be seen as a slight reach. Now, Hunter Henry, Tariq Cohen, Tyler Higbee, all going after us. And I think Tyler Higbee, I really like that pick. I mean, Tyler Higbee is someone I hated in fantasy last year, but his situation is drastically better now, and his price is drastically cheaper. So yeah, I am completely fine going that route. Okay, so 82 likes on the live stream with only 100 people watching. Thank you so much, my dudes. Literally everybody in here pretty much has dropped a like. That is actually massive. Now, I know a lot of people are not going to like that Chuba Hubbard pick, like I said, but the thing is, when you're at the very last rounds, there's no such thing as a reach. Just essentially, you're making bets, because I'm operating as if this is a real league. Like I said, we're about to have that $500 Patreon league getting started later this month. So I want to make sure that we are getting practice in as if we were playing in a real league. And I'm not trying to soak up ADP value with these players that are eventually going to get cut regardless. Obviously, ADP value in rounds 1 through 10, they really matter. But once you start to get beyond that, once you start to get to the very end of the draft, what really matters is just chasing upside, because I want some players that I know that I'm going to be able to cut. I mean, if things don't break right and there's a hot waiver wire option like a James Robinson, I would want someone that I feel comfortable cutting, and it's a very clear path with Chuba Hubbard. If Christian McCaffrey's healthy, then hell, Chuba Hubbard has no value and we can get him off our roster. But if CMC does indeed go down, Chuba Hubbard has the potential to be a running back one. It's a very simple path where a guy like Tariq Cohen, I mean, you essentially can never cut him because he's always going to have a role in that team. Yet the ceiling with Tariq Cohen is always going to be limited. I mean, it's a very cloudy situation where you're not giving yourself any easy decisions at the beginning part of the season. Okay, Dakota says, brother, what's your expert suggestion on finding and ensuring you've joined a legit dynasty league? Love the content. Thanks. Okay, so my expert decision is join Patreon, join a Flock Patreon league, because I have those structured in a way where they essentially are not set to fail. I mean, we have future years deposits. I have the contact info from everyone. Obviously, I have a very large audience where if somebody does back out of a league, I can go through and I can get that filled ASAP. That would be my expert opinion, to be completely honest, is to join the Flock Patreon. And once we have that announcement that a league is available, shoot me a DM that you want in. Okay, so now let's go through and see who we are going to be looking at. Okay, so Rodgers does go off the board here at the 12:03, and it looks like I may owe an apology to Kevin at the 12:12 if he does indeed get some quarterbacks falling to him. Okay, so now I think what we look to do is maybe we go wide receiver, maybe we continue to punt. There are just multiple wide receivers I feel comfortable drafting if we need to. So Devontae Parker going off here at the 12:05. Yeah, I think I'm going to take a wide receiver here if the guy that we want falls. And he does. We're going to take Terrace Marshall. Like I said, guys, what we are doing with these late round picks is I'm going all upside. I mean, a guy like T.Y. Hilton, we have seen what he is. I mean, best case scenario for T.Y. Hilton is he's a high-end wide receiver 3. That's best case scenario at this point. Where a guy like Terrace Marshall, who knows, maybe he is Justin Jefferson from last year. So I'm willing to take that risk at the very end of the draft, given the fact that, hell, I'm probably going to be churning the waiver wire regardless. And if Terrace Marshall does not show that he has that potential, then we can easily move on from him. Okay, you have Williams going there. Honestly, I am not going to lie at all. If I knew Jamal Williams was available, I would have taken Jamal Williams at the 1106. That is 100% my fault right there for letting Jamal Williams fall. Jamal Williams has been the best value on the board since Gus Edwards. I mean, he has been the best value on the board since the 1104. The Rock, congrats on that fantastic pick. That is a massive blunder by myself. I need to pay more attention to the board. That's what I was saying, guys. I need to make sure that we are getting these reps in so I feel comfortable streaming, checking the live chat, and doing these drafts all at once. Okay, so now let's go through and so let's go Gabriel Davis, T.Y. Hilton, Kadarius Toney. Okay, so you do have some wide receivers going off the board here. Yeah, so Kevin does indeed get Ryan Tannehill at the end of the 12th, man. Congrats. I apologize for saying that. I would have gone with a quarterback at the 1101. Clearly, you know what you're doing. Clearly, that paid off for you. Okay, so we have 2 more rounds left. Like I said, guys, when we take a Lamar Jackson, when we take a Travis Kelce, in a real draft, I would not be going through and drafting a backup tight end or a backup quarterback in with these settings. And I am operating as if this is a real draft. I am not trying to make my roster pretty for a screenshot after to show my friends and say, hey, what do you think about this sexy team I drafted? No, we are trying to maximize upside that we can have with this roster. And when you take a Kelce, when you take a Lamar with the shallow lineup that we have here, I do not necessarily want to be going through and rostering backups because we would never be playing the backups outside of bye weeks, outside of injuries, and that's what the waiver wire is for. So we're going to continue to take shots at running back, continue to take shots at wide receiver, trying to find some high upside guys. I mean, if our tight end 1 was Mike Gesicki, then yes, we would be drafting another tight end in this range. Yes, we could start to look at getting an Irv Smith, getting an Evan Ingram. But no, I mean, when you have Travis Kelce, I'm kind of locking myself into only drafting 1. And that's one of the luxuries in drafting Travis Kelce is you get to use one of those bench spots on bringing in another running back. Okay, so Devin Singletary at the 1302. Okay, so Cole Kmet at the 1303. Alexander Madison. Madison was the guy that I wanted. Nice pick there. I really wanted Alexander Madison with this upcoming pick. Now, if we go over to running back, really nobody that is popping out to me. Maybe we just get our guy in Rashad Penny. There are 2 running backs. No, 3 running backs, actually. How many wide receivers would I be interested in? I'm sorry I'm not saying the names out loud. I just know if I say the names out loud, they're simply not going to be coming back to us. Okay, so right now we have 4 running backs on this roster. We have 6 wide receivers. I think what we probably do is we look to take another running back, just knowing that we are having to take a shotgun approach to that running back 2 spot. We are shooting for upside with guys that could be potential workhorses if things break right. That's what we are getting here with Rashad Penny with the 1306. I'm completely fine with that pick. Okay, so now let's see. Kevin says, Mason, I almost took him where I took Gallup. It was very scary in round 12. Okay, so yeah, no, man, I will say, you clearly, obviously smashed this quarterback strategy. I mean, I need to start doing this. I need to start waiting until the very end to get those quarterbacks. I think you're playing it right, my man. I need to start taking more wide receivers early, start taking more. I don't even want to say I'm taking a running back in round 5. I mean, what running back am I taking in round 5? I'm not drafting Robinson, Mike Davis, maybe Javonte Williams. But no, I think we need to start taking more wide receivers in that range instead of getting those elite quarterbacks. Okay, we are so close to passing 100 likes on the live stream, guys. If you have not dropped a like on the live stream, go down there and do so. It helps us out so much. Okay, Stevenson going off the board there at the 1312. That is a running back that I would have been interested in, as well as Brian Edwards at the 1401. That is a wide receiver that I would have liked. So nice picks there. Those are both players that I would have wanted with my last round pick. Justin Fields at the 1402, getting that upside. I really like to see that. Okay, now I think what we look to do is possibly take a wide receiver that y'all know that I'm a fan of. If not, there's one more running back. I believe he has not gone yet. Yeah, there's one more running back that I like. Joe Burrow is still available. God dang, I hate myself. We need to start waiting on quarterback. We need to start waiting on that position. Okay, we just passed 100 likes in the live stream. Thank you, my dudes. Now let's just go through, and essentially what we'd be looking at is we'd be looking at drafting either, Paris Campbell actually already went. So it was going to be down between Paris Campbell and Darrell Williams for me. But like we have said so many times before, understanding that these last few picks are going to end up getting cut for waiver wire options regardless. What you were looking for is you were looking for that upside, a guy that hey, I'm not cutting this player if things break right. Darrell Williams is that. If you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire going down, all of a sudden Darrell Williams is a starting running back for the most potent offense in football. So yeah, Darrell Williams in the 14th round. I'm going to be taking that. I'm going to be taking these high upside shots at the very end. Okay, so Nico Collins directly after that. Sammy Watkins at the 409. Javion Hawkins at the 14-10. I really like that Javion Hawkins selection as well. I mean, the problem with taking a Nico Collins and Sammy Watkins here is it's nice in a mock draft, but if you're treating this as a real league where you're going to have that waiver wire, I mean, there are going to be a million wide receiver options very similar to that as we go through. Okay, so now let's switch this over. I'm going to turn off my little camera here. That way we can see the entire draft board if anybody wants to take a screenshot of it, if anybody wants to do anything with this. And yeah, I think that should be it. I really appreciate everybody coming out, everybody showing that love, and I want to remind everyone that we are going through and we are having that $500 fantasy league over there on Patreon later this month, maybe at the beginning of next month. Once we hit 400 Patreon supporters, which should be, I want to say, probably within this week, I'll be making that post and having y'all enter to take that free $500 buy-in spot. And yeah, that should be it. Thank you all so much for coming out, my dudes. I appreciate y'all, and I will see y'all with the video tomorrow. And also, the Flock Meetup, Austin, Texas, is today. Please, if you want to know the details,